Hey, this is the Well Advice Channel too. What I want to talk about today is a topic of, is capitalism a bad system? So when it comes to answering this question that comes up time and time and time again, the simple answer to that question, when it comes to the question of is capitalism a bad system, is simply no. Capitalism is not a bad system, and if anything, is actually the best system economically we have ever had. It's just that the problem with capitalism, you know, is that the issues that stem around it is actually more down to technical rules, more than it actually, or I should say technicalities actually, more than it actually is the fundamental system. Because this is a problem many people have about their views on capitalism, is that a lot of people do not understand capitalism. All capitalism fundamentally is, as a whole, and just in general as a whole, really is just a system that is based on using competition as a way to encourage more money, and through more money, more power. Um, and more success. It's pretty much, to sum it up, just a competition-based system that's focused on making as much money as possible. Okay, um, as a whole, and of course, with once you get money, good things come with it. Okay, such as power, influence, the things you want, yada 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 yada. That's all capitalism is at its fundamental core, okay? Is how to generate the most amount of money and so on and so forth. But the truth of the matter is, despite that fact and despite that knowledge actually being out there, there's a lot of people that don't feel that way. A lot of people always attack capitalism, saying that it actually promotes a lot of very messed up things, and it actually causes a lot of problems, whether it could be, for one, creating a society where there's a lot of corruption in the government, to unaffordable health care, you know, to things like having bosses who overwork you and are cruel and mean, you know, to not paying people the right amount of money and stuff on time and all that type of stuff, when they're doing like a job, you know, um, you know, whatever, you get the point. Like all the pretty much basic arguments you hear, you know, at least when it comes to complaints people have for capitalism. But people don't tend to understand there's a difference between a fundamental system that's meant to do something versus technicalities. Those are technicalities. And what technicalities means in this regard is that those are things you can change. Those are simply down to rules and regulations and stuff that have been passed by people, that actually don't necessarily have to be that way. Okay, whether it's passed by someone or supported by someone, or just in general for that matter, is of course something that somebody just hasn't resolved because it's overlooked. It's just a technicality when it comes to things, just like, for example, the high cost of healthcare in America. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to the high cost of healthcare in America, it doesn't have to be that way. There was once a time in America, the cost of healthcare, like if you got sick, broke your thumb, or lost a tooth, you didn't even have to pay that much money or something. It's just that because of corrupt government officials and so on and so forth, and people just wanted to make big money with their friends, yada, 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 that it became as expensive that you literally live in a country, if you live in America, if you get a bad tooth, and it comes out, you know, depending on your plan, or say lack of plan, whatever, you get the point. Like wherever you have to rely on, whoever you have to rely on, more like, you could literally be paying tens of thousands of dollars simply have a tooth replaced. That has nothing to do with capitalism. That is just simply the fundamental system that's been put in place by bad lawmakers who just want to make a quick, easy buck. Because if that is true, why does Canada, actually where I live, not have that system? And Canada is a capitalist nation. So what exactly are you trying to get at here? And that's what exactly what I'm trying to get across here. Just because a system is full of capitalism doesn't necessarily mean a lot of things we attribute to be negative things that are associated with capitalism actually have anything to do with capitalism itself, which of course the main premise, and thought of capitalism is just simply money. And of course, those negative things I was referring to earlier are associated with money. It still doesn't necessarily mean that it has anything to do with capitalism whatsoever, you know, or when it comes to the other issues, like I was getting at before, whether it could be, you have a boss who likes to overwork you and make you work overtime and stuff, that could just simply be just down to just simply a lack of proper government regulations on trying to prevent, employers from abusing their employees, you know, or for the other one I mentioned, for the examples I gave that are the common complaints about capitalism, you know, um, you know, um, the one about not being paid enough and all that type of stuff, that one, that also comes down to regulations. Those are things that could be changed by simply bad, you know, that, or I should say, can be changed by good lawmakers and officials, if they actually put the time and effort into actually, well, changing those things. Capitalism is something that has nothing to do with that stuff. Those are just rules people created, if anything. It's just like having a fundamental system, like, let's give an easy example. Like, for example, just to give an easy example, it's like, for example, having a fundamental system like, you know, um, like, for example, I don't know, maybe just to give an easy example, like economics, a fundamental system like, economics out there for that matter, like the economy and how the economy works, and all that type of stuff, when it has a fundamental way it works in general as a whole, and blaming that fundamental system for a lot of different things that are going on, when it's just like it's just a fundamental system that's obsessed with growth, in all honesty, and you're blaming it for all these atrocities and all these evil things that are happening in the world and all that type of stuff, though, like people in India, or China not paying their workers on time and abusing them. Like, what the hell does that have to do with that specifically? That's the decisions that some people decide to make. And that's exactly what I'm trying to get back to capitalism. Blaming capitalism is not the answer. It's an easy answer, but it's not the answer, especially when you take in consideration every time we've tried any other system, whether socialism, communism, even fascism, for that matter, throughout human history, they've all failed. As a species, whenever we've tried anything different, all of those systems, for that matter, failed. They all failed and didn't really work. And it's kind of course, harder to work with something that pretty much teaches you that money's not the answer, when most of human history, the vast majority of human history, even before capitalism, we had, you know, systems that were similar to capitalism in regards of it's about making money and growth, just like feudalism or, any other of the other systems that existed, economically speaking, economic systems that existed before, even though they were not capitalism, they were similar to capitalism. So we have at least thousands of years as a species of knowledge on how to deal with money versus a system that teaches us money is useless and it doesn't do anything and it just doesn't really matter for that matter. So that's what I'm trying to say. So let's stick with something that we know is going to work versus something that we don't really understand how to make it work. So that's the truth of the matter. So anyway, this is my video when it comes to explaining why capitalism doesn't deserve the hate it gets, as it's overhated. And if there's one more thing to say, if us left wingers are going to become more powerful and be able to defeat the right wing, we are going to have to stop getting into this ideology, because the truth of the matter is, simply put it, communism doesn't work. And what we need to do instead is to focus on better strategies and tips that can be used to prevent, government corruption and all these issues that come alongside living in a world run by money. So anyway, this is my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Just remember, if you like this video, watch more of my videos, and this is it. Bye.